painting a soft orange glow across the parking lot. Officer Daniel sat at his desk, sipping a warm cup of coffee, flipping through reports from the night shift. The silence was calm and comforting until he heard it. A deep, urgent bark echoed through the entrance. It wasn't just a random bark. It sounded desperate. It sounded like a cry for help. Daniel stood up immediately. He walked toward the door, expecting maybe a stray dog or someone playing a prank. But when the glass doors slid open, what he saw froze him in place. A large German shepherd was standing right at the front steps of the police station. Its fur was messy and wet from the morning dew. Its chest rose and fell fast as it barked again, eyes locked on him. But then Daniel noticed something that made his heart drop. Behind the dog lay a small figure, a little girl. She was maybe 6 or 7 years old, dressed in a thin nightgown, barefoot, her hair tangled. She wasn't moving. The German shepherd gently pulled at her sleeve with its teeth as if begging her to wake up. Then it turned to Daniel and barked again, louder this time. "Call for medical help," Daniel shouted over his shoulder. 2 other officers rushed out. Officer Maria knelt beside the girl, checking for breathing. She was breathing, but weakly. Her tiny hands were scratched, and her cheek had dried streaks of blood. Her nightgown was torn at the edge, and there was dirt all over her legs, like she had been dragged or walked through something rough. The dog wouldn't leave her side. When Maria tried to lift the girl, the shepherd growled softly, not out of anger, but fear. It positioned itself between the officers and the child. Its ears were back, eyes filled with worry. "It's okay, buddy," Daniel said slowly, lowering himself to the dog's level. His voice was calm and gentle, the way someone talks to a frightened soul. "We're here to help her."
Oh.
The dog didn't move. It kept looking between Daniel and the girl. Its body trembled slightly. It looked exhausted, like it had been on a long, hard journey. Daniel stretched out his hand slowly. The dog sniffed his palm. Its tail didn't wag, but it didn't back away either. It was a silent agreement. The dog was trusting him, but just enough to save the girl. Paramedics arrived within minutes, sirens cutting through the still morning. They gently placed the girl on a stretcher, checking her pulse and giving her oxygen. The dog barked frantically when they tried to lift her, pacing around them as if shouting, "Don't hurt her. Please help." One paramedic looked at Daniel nervously. "The dog's not letting us move her." "She's his world right now," Daniel replied softly. "Let me handle it." He approached the dog again, crouched beside it, and spoke in a low voice. "She's going to be okay. I promise you. We'll follow her. You can come with us." The dog tilted its head, then looked at the girl. After a few seconds, it let out a long, low whine and stepped back, but not far. Just enough to allow the medics to carry her carefully toward the ambulance. The shepherd followed closely, never taking its eyes off the girl, as the stretcher was loaded into the ambulance. The dog jumped right in behind, without hesitation. "Let him stay," Maria said to the medics, noticing how the dog's presence seemed to calm the girl's soft breathing. It curled up at her feet, placing its head near her hand. Meanwhile, officers started trying to piece things together. Who was this little girl? Where did she come from? Why was there no adult with her? The shepherd had no collar tag, just an old, worn leather collar around its neck. It wasn't chipped either. Back at the station, people gathered around the doorway, whispering about what they'd seen. Daniel stood for a moment outside, watching the ambulance drive away. The shepherd's head visible in the back, eyes alert and protective. He couldn't shake the feeling that this was no ordinary event. Something about the way the dog had appeared, it's almost like it knew where to go for help, made everything feel both mysterious and urgent. A German shepherd had dragged an injured little girl to the one place it must have trusted, the police station. That wasn't just random. That was purposeful. Daniel turned to Maria. "We need to find out who they are," he said firmly. She nodded. "And how they got here." So the 2 officers got to work. They checked the area around the station, but found no vehicle, no sign of other people. It was as if the dog had walked miles carrying her. While Maria began reviewing camera footage from nearby roads, Daniel drove to the hospital to check on the girl's condition. He found the shepherd lying just outside the emergency room doors. It hadn't left her side for a second. When Daniel arrived, the dog stood up immediately, as if recognizing the man it had trusted earlier. A nurse came out to speak with him. "She's stable," the nurse said softly. "She has scratches, bruises, and mild dehydration. But she'll be okay. She hasn't woken up yet. No ID on her. No one has come forward." Daniel looked at the dog and then back at the nurse. "This dog is the only one who knows what happened." The shepherd let out a small sound, part whine and part sigh. Its eyes never left the hospital room door. People walking past couldn't help but stop and watch. There was something deeply moving about the sight of a tired, dirty dog standing guard over a small girl who couldn't even speak for herself yet. No one knew it yet. But that morning was just the beginning of a story that would spread far and wide. A story of loyalty. A story of courage. A story of a German shepherd who walked into a police station with a little girl and changed everything. Daniel leaned against the wall outside the hospital, staring at the sunrise as he thought to himself, "This dog didn't just bring her here by chance. There's a truth behind those eyes, and we're going to find it." The first part of their journey was already written, the rescue. But what lay behind that silent, powerful act was something no one in the station could have imagined. And soon, everyone in town would know the truth that left them speechless. The sun was now high, and the one-scum morning had turned into a day full of unanswered questions. The German shepherd was still there, sitting just outside the emergency room. Its ears perked up when it saw Daniel. It didn't bark this time. It just stood, tail low, eyes tired, but alert. The dog had not moved much, except to drink a little water someone had placed near the door inside. The hospital hallway smelled of disinfectant and soft beeping monitors. Nurses moved quickly, doctors whispered in corners, and families waited anxiously for news. But in room 104, the little girl lay quietly. A soft bandage wrapped around her forehead and her hands were resting by her side. Her breathing was steady now and her cheeks had a little more color than before. She still hadn't opened her eyes. Daniel carefully opened the door and stepped inside. A nurse followed him. "She's stable," the nurse said gently. "We think she'll wake up soon. But there's no information about her. No one has come looking. No reports. Nothing." Daniel nodded, his jaw tightening. That means she might be lost. Or someone doesn't know where she is. Outside the room, Maria and another officer, John, arrived with updates. "We checked the road cameras," Maria said, holding a tablet. "The dog was first spotted around 4 a.m., about a mile away. It was pulling something, probably her. They came down the old highway, then cut through side streets. No one stopped them. No cars. No people," John added. There was no sign of anyone following them. No other vehicle in the footage. The dog seemed to know exactly where it was going. Daniel looked at the shepherd, who was now lying near the hallway, its head resting on its paws. "That dog isn't just any dog," he said softly. "It's smart. It led her to safety." Maria crouched down beside the dog. "Hey there, buddy," she whispered. The shepherd lifted its head but didn't move away. It was tired, but focused. She noticed its paws were scraped, probably from walking on rough ground for a long distance. That meant the dog had been traveling for hours, maybe all night. Back in the girls' room, a doctor approached Daniel. "She doesn't seem to have any serious injuries other than mild trauma and exhaustion," the doctor explained. "But she's dehydrated and very weak. We're giving her fluids. If she wakes up, she might remember something. Until then, we'll keep her safe." Daniel nodded again, but his mind was racing. A child this young, alone with a dog in the middle of the night, didn't make sense. Something had happened. Meanwhile, the officers at the station began digging deeper. They checked missing child reports in nearby towns and neighborhoods. They called hospitals, schools, and local shelters. But nothing matched the girl's description. It was as if she had appeared out of nowhere. By early afternoon, something changed. The little girl stirred for the first time. Her eyelashes fluttered. Her fingers moved slightly on the blanket. A nurse quickly called Daniel and Maria inside. They stood quietly as the girl slowly opened her eyes. She looked confused at first, her gaze moving around the room. But the moment she saw the German Shepherd standing at the door, her weak expression softened. Her lips parted and a tiny sound came out, "Doggy." The shepherd immediately stood up and walked to the bedside. The nurses hesitated, but Daniel gently gestured to let the dog in. The German Shepherd carefully placed its head near her hand, letting her tiny fingers rest on its fur. For the first time since arriving, the girl smiled faintly. Maria knelt beside her. "Hi, sweetheart," she said softly. "You're safe now. We're the police. We're here to help you. Do you know your name?" The girl blinked slowly. She seemed tired, her voice barely above a whisper. "Lily," she said. "Lily," Daniel repeated gently. "That's a beautiful name. Lily, do you remember what happened?" Lily shook her head weakly. Her eyes filled with confusion. I don't know. Doggy helped me." "Do you know Doggy's name?" Maria asked carefully. Lily shook her head again. "He just found me. Then we walked. It was cold." Daniel felt a chill down his spine. A small girl, alone and injured, walking with a dog through the night. She must have been terrified. But somehow, this dog had not only stayed with her, but led her straight to the one place where she could get help. "Lily," Maria continued softly, "do you know where you live?" "Your house?" Lily closed her eyes, trying to think. There was a road, a tree, a loud noise. Her voice faded, and her eyes grew wet. The memory was blurry, maybe too painful. Daniel gently patted her arm. "It's okay," he said kindly. "You don't have to remember everything right now. You're safe here." The shepherd let out a soft whine and licked her hand, which made her smile again through the tears. The connection between them was clear. This wasn't just a dog. This was her lifeline. Outside the room, the officers gathered again. "She remembers very little," Daniel said. "But she said something about a loud noise and a road. That might be an accident. Check the old highway. We might find something there." Maria nodded. "I'll get a team out there." As evening approached, the story started to spread quietly among the hospital staff. A dog had carried a child to safety. Some people came to the hallway just to see the loyal shepherd sitting outside her room. It didn't growl, didn't bark. It simply stayed, like a silent guard. Daniel returned later with food. He placed a bowl of water and a sandwich next to the dog. At first, the shepherd ignored it, too focused on Lily's door. But when Daniel gently pushed the bowl closer, the dog slowly ate, never taking its eyes off the room. In the room, Lily slowly grew more awake. She told the nurse she remembered waking up on the side of a dark road. She didn't remember where she came from or where her family was. All she remembered was the dog pulling her sleeve, staying close, and walking through the cold night until they saw lights. Daniel listened to every word carefully. "We'll find out where you came from," he promised her softly. That night, Maria returned to the station with updates. "We found tire marks and a broken guardrail on the old highway," she said. "Looks like there was some kind of accident. Maybe a car went off the road. No vehicle there now, but signs someone was there recently." Daniel's heart tightened. That's where she must have been. "The dog pulled her out and walked all the way here." Maria nodded. Whatever happened out there, this dog saved her life. Back at the hospital, the German shepherd curled up on the floor outside Lily's room, eyes half closed but ears alert. Every time a nurse opened the door, it lifted its head to check on her. Everyone in the hallway whispered about the brave dog. Some even brought it a blanket. The bond between Lily and the shepherd was growing stronger every hour. She didn't talk much, but when the dog was beside her, she seemed calmer, safer. She held its paw like a friend. As Daniel looked at them through the small glass window, he realized something. This was more than just an ordinary case. This was a story of trust, a story of a child and a dog who had faced the darkness together. But deep inside, he knew something was still missing. Where had Lily come from? Why was she alone? And how had this dog known where to bring her? The answers were waiting out there on that cold, dark highway. And the truth, when they found it, would shock everyone in the town. Daniel turned to Maria and John with a determined look. "Tomorrow morning," he said quietly, we go to that road. Whatever happened there, we're going to find it. The German Shepherd lay quietly, its eyes closing slowly. But even in its sleep, it seemed ready. Because this story wasn't over. It had only just begun. Parked their patrol car at the edge of the old highway. The air was cool, and the only sound was the wind brushing through the trees. The German Shepherd sat in the back seat of the car, its eyes wide and alert. It hadn't needed a leash. Somehow it seemed to understand this was part of the journey. "This is where we found the broken guardrail," Maria said, pointing to the side of the road. Tire marks stretched across the pavement, leading toward the trees and down into a small slope. Daniel stepped carefully toward the edge. He could see pieces of broken glass scattered in the grass. There was also a faint smell of burnt rubber, as if a vehicle had been here recently. The dog jumped out of the car and sniffed the ground right away. Its tail was stiff, its nose moving quickly. It moved back and forth, circling the guardrail, then lowered its head to the ground. After a few seconds, it began walking slowly toward the trees. Daniel and Maria followed quietly. They reached a slope covered in leaves and dirt. At the bottom, hidden behind some bushes, was a clear sign of a crash site. The grass was pressed down in a straight line, and branches were broken. A few feet away lay an empty bottle, a torn jacket, and a child's pink backpack. Daniel picked it up carefully, brushing the dirt off. This must be hers. Maria whispered. The shepherd barked softly and walked around the site. It sniffed near a tree, then sat down suddenly, looking up at Daniel with serious eyes. Daniel knelt beside the dog. "This is where it happened, isn't it?" he said softly, as if the dog could answer. Maria was already taking pictures and marking the area for the investigation team. "There are no signs of a car now," she said. "It must have been towed away or driven off after the crash. But someone was here. Probably at night?" Daniel looked around. "And this brave dog must have pulled Lily out, and then walked all the way to the station. That's at least a mile or more, in the dark." Through the cold, Maria's eyes softened. "That's not just loyalty. That's real courage." As they carefully searched the area, they found something else. A faded wallet tucked under the driver's seat mat, which had been thrown a few feet from the site. Inside was a family picture. A woman with dark hair, a man holding Lily on his shoulders, and the same German Shepherd standing beside them. All smiling. It was a happy photo. But it also meant something more. The dog wasn't just a stray. It belonged to Lily's family. Daniel held up the photo. "This changes everything," he said quietly. "This is their family. This dog didn't just find her. It's her protector." Maria's chest tightened as she looked at the image. Then where are her parents now? That question hung in the cool air like a heavy cloud. The dog, as if sensing their thoughts, began walking along a narrow path down the hill. Daniel followed it carefully. After a few minutes, they reached a small stream. The ground here was muddy. They noticed footprints, small ones and large ones. Lily's tiny footprints and the dog's paw prints were there, clear as day. There were also tire tracks, but they didn't lead back to the highway. They turned toward a side road. "Someone must have left after the accident," Daniel said slowly. "But why didn't they call for help? Why leave a child behind?" Maria frowned. "Unless something happened fast. And the dog took her away before it got worse." The officers marked the area and called the evidence team. But something else caught their eye. Near the stream lay a broken phone. It was covered in mud but still recognizable. Maria carefully put it in a plastic bag. If it could be cleaned, maybe it would reveal something important. The German Shepherd walked back to the pink backpack and gently nudged it with its nose, as if remembering the moment it had found Lily there. Daniel placed his hand on the dog's head. "You did something incredible that night," he whispered, back at the station later. The investigation team cleaned the phone and managed to recover a few files. There were messages, and more importantly, an emergency call that had never been completed. A woman's shaky voice said, "We're on the highway," before the recording cut off. It was clear something sudden and frightening had happened. Meanwhile, Lily was slowly recovering at the hospital. She was still weak, but more alert now. When Daniel returned, She smiled when she saw him and the dog. "Hi, Lily," Daniel said gently as he walked into her room. "We went to the place where the dog found you. Do you remember anything about it?" She looked down for a moment, rubbing the edge of her blanket with her fingers. "There was a big noise, like something breaking," she said softly. Mommy screamed. "Doggy jumped on me, and then I don't remember." Her voice grew quiet, and tears formed in her eyes. The shepherd walked to her bedside, placing its head gently on her lap. She hugged it tightly, pressing her face into its fur. Daniel knelt beside her. "Hey, you're very brave," he said softly. "And so is your dog. He saved your life. He brought you to us." She nodded slowly, her voice trembling. "I was so scared. But Doggy never left me. He pulled my sleeve. He wouldn't let me stop walking." Maria entered the room with a small bag in her hand. She showed Lily the pink backpack. "Is this yours, sweetheart?" Lily's eyes widened, and she nodded quickly. "Yes, that's mine." She reached for it with small hands, holding it close like a piece of home. Maria gently said, "We found it where the accident happened. We also found a picture of your family. Do you remember this?" She showed Lily the photo. Lily stared at it for a long time. Her lips trembled. "That's Mommy, Daddy, and Doggy," she whispered. Her eyes filled with tears again. "Where are they?" Daniel felt a weight in his chest. He didn't have an answer yet, but one thing was clear now. Lily and the dog hadn't just wandered to the station by chance. They had survived something together. Outside the hospital room, Maria whispered, "We need to find her parents. The truth is in that missing car and the broken phone." Daniel nodded. "And we'll find it. We owe it to her, and to that dog who led her here." Meanwhile, the German shepherd had become a quiet star at the hospital. Nurses brought him water and treats. Children in other rooms asked to see the hero dog. But the dog only cared about Lily. It slept near her bed every night. Lifting its head whenever someone entered the room, Daniel spent that evening going through the recovered messages from the phone. One of the last messages was sent at 3:45 a.m. It said, "Almost home." That meant they had been driving on the highway not long before the accident. But there were no records of anyone reporting a crash at that hour. This deepened the mystery. If there had been an accident, why wasn't it reported? Why was the car missing? And why did the phone get left behind? At the same time, something new happened at the hospital. When Lily was being wheeled to the garden for some fresh air, the dog suddenly stood up and barked, once not in fear, but like it recognized something. Its ears were sharp, its tail stiff. Daniel quickly followed its gaze. The dog was staring at a car pulling into the hospital parking lot. It wasn't the same one from the accident. There was something about the sound or the smell that caught the dog's attention. Its body stiffened, as if ready to guide or protect again. Daniel made a mental note. The dog had a way of sensing things. It had led them to Lily. It had helped them find the accident site. And now, it might lead them closer to the truth. That night, as Lily fell asleep with the dog lying close beside her, Daniel stood at the hospital hallway window, looking out at the quiet parking lot. His heart was steady, but his mind was sharp. "The truth is close," he said softly to Maria. "This dog knows something we don't, and tomorrow, we'll find it." The mystery that started with a silent dog at a police station was now becoming clearer piece by piece. The dog wasn't just a hero. It was the only living witness to a night that no one else remembered. And Daniel knew the closer they got to the truth, the more everyone in town would be shocked by what they were about to uncover. Lily was sitting on her bed, hugging her pink backpack. The German shepherd lay at her feet, half asleep, but alert enough to lift its head whenever someone opened the door. The bond between them had grown even stronger overnight. Nurses walked by quietly, smiling at the sight of the little girl and her loyal protector. Meanwhile, Daniel and Maria were preparing to return to the accident site. The broken phone and family photo had given them their first real clues, and they hoped today would bring answers. But they didn't expect what was about to happen. Before leaving, Daniel stopped by Lily's room. She looked at him with wide eyes. as if she already knew he was going back to the place where everything had started. "Good morning, Lily," he said softly. "Good morning," she whispered, holding the dog close. "We're going to find out what happened," Daniel explained gently. "We're going to make sure everything is okay. Doggy did something very brave, and because of him, we already know a lot. Today, we'll learn more." Lily's little fingers curled around the dog's fur. "Be careful," she said in her tiny voice. "Doggy will help." Maria smiled softly. "He already did help, sweetheart." They left soon after, driving back to war at the old highway. The morning mist was slowly fading and the air was fresh. When they reached the site, 2 investigators were already waiting. They had spent the night collecting more details, things that hadn't been obvious before. "We found something," one of the investigators said as Daniel and Maria approached. He pointed toward the stream. "About 50 yards downstream, we found tire marks leading away from the crash site. Whoever was in that car left the area," Daniel frowned. "Someone was able to drive off after the accident." "It looks like it," the investigator replied. "But here's the strange part. There's no record of any car matching that description passing through the next highway camera. It disappeared somewhere between here and the next town." Maria glanced at Daniel. "So either they took a hidden road, or something happened after they left here. The dog wasn't with them this time. It had stayed at the hospital with Lily, but its paw prints from that night were still visible in the soft dirt." The team followed the tire marks further into the woods. After about 10 minutes of walking, they discovered a small dirt road that led to an old, unused barn. Daniel slowed down as they approached. The doors were slightly open. Dust covered the ground, but something felt off. He carefully pushed the door wider and stepped inside. There, hidden in the corner, was a dark SUV with a broken headlight and dents along its side. It matched the signs they'd seen at the crash site. Maria's voice dropped to a whisper. "That's the car." They moved closer. The front seats were stained with dirt, and the back seat had a soft blanket with little flowers on it, probably lilies. There was also a small stuffed bear lying on the floor. It felt like walking into a memory frozen in time. Daniel noticed a faint smell inside, like engine oil and something old. It didn't feel like a dangerous place, just abandoned. He checked the glove compartment and found some documents. They belonged to Lily's parents. "They were here," he said quietly. This was their car. But where were they now? Maria stepped outside and looked around the barn. Behind it, there was a small clearing leading toward the main road. She saw 2 sets of footprints in the mud, one larger, one smaller. "Someone left this place on foot," she said. Daniel's chest tightened. They were trying to find help. Just then, the sound of a car approaching echoed through the trees. Daniel turned around quickly, his hand instinctively resting on his side. A local farmer's truck appeared, and an older man stepped out. He wore a brown hat and carried a walking stick. "You folks? The police?" he asked. Daniel nodded. "Yes, sir." "Did you see this car here before?" The old man scratched his head. "Yeah, 2 nights ago, I heard a loud noise from the highway. When I came out in the morning, that car was already here. I saw a woman sitting near the barn door, holding her arm. She looked hurt, but when I called out, she ran toward the woods. I thought maybe someone else was picking her up. I didn't see her again." Maria's eyes widened slightly. "She was alive." "Yes," the old man nodded slowly. "She kept calling out for someone. I think she was saying a name. Sounded like Lily." Daniel exchanged a look with Maria. Lily's mother had survived the crash. She had tried to find help, but something must have gone wrong, the old man continued. "I told the sheriff's office, but no one came to check. Thought maybe she found help on her own." They thanked the farmer and called in search units. Soon, officers began combing the nearby woods carefully. Back at the hospital, Lily was resting in bed. The German shepherd suddenly lifted its head and sat up straight. It stared at the door as if it had heard something no one else could. Lily tilted her head. "What is it, doggy?" she whispered. The dog let out a soft bark and stood near the door. Something about its body language felt different. Not scared, hopeful. That afternoon, Daniel and Maria returned to the hospital. Their faces carried both urgency and hope. They sat with Lily and told her what they'd found. "We found your family's car," Daniel said softly. "And we know your mom was alive after the crash. She was looking for you. That means we can find her." Lily's small hands gripped the blanket.
"Mommy!"
she whispered. Tears filled her eyes. But this time they were different, filled with a little bit of hope. The shepherd placed its paw gently on her lap, as if saying, "We'll find her." The next step was clear. They needed to search the woods near the barn. The canine search unit joined the effort that evening. But Daniel had another idea. "This dog knows the way," he said quietly to Maria. "It found its way here. Maybe it can lead us to where Lily's mom went." That night, just before sunset, they brought the German shepherd to the barn. The moment they arrived, the dog began sniffing the ground around the car. It circled once, then followed a trail toward the woods. Its movements were quick and focused. The officers followed silently, their flashlights cutting through the dim forest. After about 15 minutes of walking, the dog suddenly stopped. Its ears stood straight, and it barked sharply, pointing its nose toward a cluster of trees. Maria moved closer carefully. "Over here?" she called. Under a tree hidden behind branches, they found a woman lying weakly on the ground. She was alive, but exhausted. Her arm was wrapped in a torn piece of cloth, and she looked pale. Her eyes fluttered open when she heard the bark. "Lily," she whispered weakly. "It's okay, Daniel," said gently, kneeling beside her. "We're the police. Your daughter is safe. She's at the hospital." Tears rolled down her cheeks as she let out a trembling breath. "My little girl. She's alive. She's safe," Daniel repeated firmly. "And your dog. Your dog saved her." The woman's eyes filled with relief as she looked at the shepherd, who was now standing just a few feet away. Tail slowly wagging for the first time since that night, they carefully lifted her onto a stretcher and called for medical support. As the team carried her out of the woods, the German shepherd walked beside her, just as it had walked beside Lily. When they reached the hospital, the moment Lily saw her mother, she sat up in bed, her eyes shining with tears. "Mommy," she cried softly. Her mother reached out weakly, and the two held each other tightly. The German shepherd climbed onto the bed and rested its head between them. It didn't bark, it didn't move. It just stayed there like it had been waiting for this moment all along. The nurses and officers around the room watched silently. The air was heavy with emotion, relief, joy, and gratitude. This was the reunion no one had dared to promise Lily. But the loyal dog had made it possible. That night, Daniel stood outside their hospital room. Maria joined him quietly. "We found her," she said softly. "Yeah," Daniel whispered, looking through the glass at the girl, her mother, and the shepherd cuddled together. This dog never gave up, not even once. What had started as a mysterious arrival at the station was now turning into a story that would inspire everyone in town. A little girl saved by a dog's courage, a mother reunited with her daughter, and a loyal German shepherd that led them every step of the way. But even as the hospital lights dimmed, Daniel knew this story wasn't over yet. There was still the question of what happened on that highway and why the car had been abandoned. But for now, the most important thing had happened. A family was whole again. And the town had witnessed something truly powerful, pure loyalty. Warm, and the tension that had filled the halls for days had slowly turned into quiet smiles. Nurses walked past Lily's room and couldn't help but stop to peek inside. What they saw always melted their hearts. Lily was lying in her bed, with her little hand resting on her mother's arm. Her mother was sitting on a chair beside her, tired but safe, and curled at the foot of the bed, with his head resting on Lily's blanket, was the loyal German shepherd who had carried hope on his strong shoulders. It was peaceful like the end of a storm. Daniel stood quietly outside the door, watching them through the glass panel. Maria walked up behind him, holding 2 cups of coffee. She handed him one. "You've been here since morning," she said softly. He smiled faintly. "Yeah, I just didn't want to miss this." Inside, Lily's mom gently brushed her daughter's hair with trembling hands. She still looked weak, but her eyes carried a strength that came from a mother's love. "I thought I lost you," she whispered to Lily, her voice shaking. Lily smiled sleepily. "Doggy didn't let me go, Mommy. He pulled me. He saved me." The shepherd lifted his head when he heard her soft voice, wagged his tail slowly, then laid it back down. Her mom nodded, tears welling up again. "Yes, sweetheart. He's our hero." The next morning, the doctors declared both Lily and her mother stable. Lily's bruises were healing fast, and her mother's arm was bandaged properly. She would need rest, but she was going to be fine. The small hospital room that once carried fear now carried the warm sound of laughter. Officer Daniel and Maria entered the room after knocking gently. "Good morning," Maria said with a smile. "Good morning," Lily said shyly. She was sitting up now, her pink backpack beside her and the shepherd lying close. Daniel knelt down beside the bed. "You've been so brave, Lily. So has your dog. He helped us find your mom. He helped us find the truth." Lily's mom looked at them with gratitude in her eyes. "I don't know how to thank you," she said softly. "I thought I would never see her again. I thought it was all over that night." Her voice broke for a second, but she steadied herself. "You don't need to thank us," Daniel said kindly. "The real hero is lying at the end of the bed." All eyes turned to the shepherd. The dog tilted his head slightly, almost as if he understood what was being said. Lily laughed softly, hugging his neck. Later that day, Lily's mom told the officers what had happened that night. She remembered the car skidding on the wet road after they hit a patch of loose gravel. The vehicle swerved, crashed through the guardrail, and slid down the slope. She hit her arm badly, and everything happened so fast she barely had time to react. When she came to, the car was badly damaged. She saw Lily unconscious in the back seat and the shepherd barking desperately. She had tried to move, but her arm was hurt. That's when the dog did something extraordinary. It managed to pull Lily out of the car through the open door. "I'll never forget the way he looked at me," she said, tears rolling down her face. It was like he was saying, "I'll protect her." And then they disappeared into the night. Daniel and Maria listened quietly. It was clear now that without the dog, Lily wouldn't have survived the cold night. The animal had walked miles through the darkness, guiding the injured child to the only place it somehow trusted, a police station, and after that, Lily's mom continued, "I tried to follow, but my body gave up. I collapsed near the woods. I thought I would never see either of them again. And then, you found me." Maria gently placed a hand on her shoulder. "You and your daughter are safe now. And your dog, he never gave up on either of you." The next few days passed quickly. Lily and her mother grew stronger. The shepherd stayed with them the entire time, like a quiet guardian. Every nurse and patient in the hospital began calling him hero. Some brought him treats. Children came to see him, to pat his head and whisper thank yous. Local news spread fast. People from the town were deeply moved by the story, a loyal dog pulling an injured little girl through the night to safety, a police team uncovering the mystery, and a reunion that touched every heart. The day they were discharged, the hospital lobby was filled with smiling faces. Doctors, nurses, officers, and even townspeople who had followed the story were there. Lily wore a light blue dress, and her mother held her hand gently. The shepherd walked proudly beside them, his fur brushed clean, wearing a new red collar that someone from the police, the department, had given him. Daniel crouched down and patted the dog's head. "You did something no human could have done, buddy. You're one of us now." Lily hugged him tight and whispered something into his ear only he could hear. His tail wagged slowly as if he understood. Outside the hospital, the air was warm and golden. The town's mayor and a few officers gathered to meet them. Someone from the local newspaper took photos. The mayor handed Lily's dog a shiny medal with a small paw print engraved on it, for bravery and loyalty. The mayor said warmly, "This town is proud of you." The crowd clapped softly as Lily's dog wagged his tail and leaned closer to Lily's legs. As if embarrassed by all the attention, a few days later, the police department invited Lily, her mom, and the dog to the station. The same doors where the shepherd had appeared with Lily in the cold morning were now decorated with flowers and a banner that read, "Welcome home, hero." Daniel stood at the entrance with a big smile. "The last time you came here, little one, things were very different," he said to Lily. Lily nodded and looked up at the big glass doors. "Doggy knew where to go," she said softly. Her mom smiled through misty eyes. "Yes, sweetheart, he did." The officers who had worked on the case stood together to take a photo with them. The German shepherd sat proudly between Daniel and Lily. The photo captured not just faces, but a moment of courage, love, and trust. That night, back at their small home, Lily and her mother prepared a special dinner. The shepherd had his own bowl filled with warm food. Lily placed the medal on the kitchen counter like a treasure. She sat on the floor beside her dog, resting her head against his fur. "Doggy," she whispered softly, "I'll never be scared again, because you're my hero." The dog sighed contently, laying his head gently on her lap. The house was quiet, safe, and full of warmth. Across town, people were still talking about the story. It became something bigger than a single rescue. It became a reminder of hope and loyalty. Parents told their children about the brave dog who never gave up. Officers talked about how courage can come from the most unexpected places. Daniel and Maria sat at the station late that night, remembering the moment the dog first appeared with Lily at the door. "It still feels like something out of a movie," Maria said. Daniel nodded slowly. "Yeah, but it wasn't a movie. It was real. And that dog, he changed everything." As the stars shined above the quiet town, a loyal German shepherd lay peacefully at the foot of Lily's bed, guarding her the same way he had guarded her on that dark night. The little girl no longer had fear in her heart. Her mother no longer carried the weight of uncertainty. And the town carried a story they would tell for years, a story about loyalty, courage, and the unspoken bond between a child and her dog. Sometimes heroes don't wear uniforms. Sometimes heroes have 4 paws, kind eyes, and hearts that never give up. And this German shepherd was proof of that.